Here we go with our first ever Everson Restored booster pack, and it's not all that exciting, sadly. I think the commons are pretty underwhelming. Mad Prophet is not aggressive enough for the red decks I like to draft, and the Shield Mate is just not a card that you want to first pick. I think Nephalia Smuggler is not only the strongest card in this pack, but also leads to quite interesting decks. It just has a lot of synergy with two of the best blue commons, and there isn't really an alternative here, so I think we can just go ahead and pick this and see what comes back from this pack. Now, the rare is missing, not something which is very astonishing, but there is quite a lot of blue cards. We have Vanishment as well as Peel from Reality. Also Gryff Vanguard, which has the aforementioned synergy with Nephalia Smuggler. So I think the real question is if there's a reason to not draft a blue card now, but with Vessel of Endless Rest and Defang, there is really not a reason to pick up another color yet. So I like both of the bounce spells. I especially think that Peel from Reality is a great card for blue tempo decks, but with the first pick Smuggler, I think that we should get our hand on as many Vanguards and Mist Ravens as possible. And it's also a very good card which could put people into blue, which might still happen with these two cards, but I think the creature is probably the more important signal to send here. And next up, I'm pretty sure that we are just going to pick this Lone Revenant, 4/4 hexproof, and if it's our only creature we get another Impulse out of it, which is, well, just a very good deal for 5 mana, although it's not that great to pick up a second 5-drop already. The only alternative I see would be to pick Current Striker here, but I just talked about sending the right signals, and I don't think passing the blue rare here would serve the right purpose. So I'm just going to make sure that my left neighbors are staying out of blue, and we are going to pick up a second color later. And it seems that the blue cards are where we want to be. I think Ledge Seeker is among the best blue uncommons next to Tandem Lookout. So with us being heavily in blue, there isn't a reason to pick up Guise of Fire or Devout Plane. Now at some point, of course, we will have to pick some other cards up. Gang of Devils is the new Pitchburn Devils, basically. It costs 6 and has a stronger Leafs Play trigger, but I found that 6 mana in this format is really quite a lot, so I'm not really that interested in it. Ghostly Flicker is a card where if I have one, I usually play one in my main deck, but I don't like to pick it up early because it just doesn't do anything on its own. In fact, I think that the strongest cards in this pack are black, with Butcher Ghoul, and Ghoul Flash, and I think we should pick up one of them. I'm going for the Ghoul here because when in doubt, I believe that a 1/1 creature is still better than a -1/-1 effect, and we already have the Smuggler to reset the Ghoul, but this is just us trying out a second color, so we certainly don't have to be black if we don't want to. I found that in this format, one of the most important things is to have a board presence during the first 3 turns. So I basically play all the creatures I can get my hands on, and if it's a Butcher Ghoul, that's actually perfectly fine. Here it's Soul Cage Fiend or Galvanic Alchemist. if we want to stay in these colors. There's also a Farborg Explorer, but I'm going to pick the blue card here because none of the other cards really do much for us. Now the quality is going downhill, which is to be expected. This is a format with quite a lot of unplayables or 23rd cards in the packs, which is something that we haven't had in a while. We were quite spoiled with packs where every card could be played in a deck. I don't really like Lunar Mystic, but I think Geist Snatch has some applications. I don't think that we would really need any of the other cards, so it's really funny. Usually you can see if your blue opponent has a Geist Snatch in his hand, if he passes with a lot of cards in hand and 4 mana, but I've noticed that it's not always easy to really play around it, so I think having one, maybe only for the sideboard, is always good. In this pack I like Scroll of Avacyn, Mental Agony and Zealous Strike, but I usually only play the Scroll if I also have some Angels. So Mental Agony is not something I want to play in this kind of deck, so Zealous Strike makes the cut for being the most powerful card in the pack. Here we see that Corpse Trader's Wield, which is a sign that not many people are drafting black, despite us only getting 1 black card so far. It's a traditional Hill Giant in black, which is not very common, and the additional ability is actually something that black can make good use of because it has so many creatures that have Undying. So let's pick this up and see where it goes. Next up we have the choice between Spectre Prison and the Thraben. 2/1 with Vigilance is not the best 2-drop in this format because it trades with all the 1/1s that are perfectly playable. But I don't really like Spectre Prison as a card, so I'm going to pick the white card here to make sure that wherever color I end up in, I do have enough 2-drops in the end. And here we could go with the Voice of the Provinces or Scroll of Avacyn. I really don't think that 6-drops are great in this format, and the Voice often doesn't do enough, so I'm actually going for the Scroll here, which is also going to be good if we end up in white. Here's another 5-drop that doesn't do anything, and the Gambit is also quite unplayable. So now we have 2 Scrolls, and this actually makes some kind of blue-white deck with a couple of Angels much better already. Let's pick up the Foil Demolish, and we can pass the red card because it's very unlikely that we are going to play it, and that way we send a red signal if our neighbor decides to, well, pick it up. Now, this wasn't the best pack because we didn't really manage to put ourselves into a second color, but we did pick up good blue cards, although they aren't as tempo oriented as I would like them to be. It's quite a lot more controlling than I like my blue decks to be, but when you are not pairing them with red or green, it's only natural that you get a less aggressive deck, and the blue cards we got also weren't the most aggressive ones. Especially we didn't get the Wingcrafter, and of course also no Mistraven. So I'm hoping to get quite a lot of blue cards in the second pack because of our signaling and cutting of blue. This pack, it's Human Frailty, Ovenwald Tracker, and Scrapskin Drake. I'm not seeing us picking up a red card now, and there isn't any white cards to consider. So Scrapskin Drake is okay, but I think it's not really first pickable. Whereas Human Frailty is a very good main deck card, which I like as a cheap removal spell, and I'm going to go with the black card here. Now this pack is one of the more interesting ones. It doesn't really offer a good black card, so it's either going to be a blue card where we have the choice between Banishment and Peel from Reality once again. Last time we picked the Vanguard instead. But there's also Righteous Blow and Gold Knight Commander. Now, Gold Knight Commander is almost unbeatable in a red-white aggressive deck, but I don't see our deck profiting from its effect that much. We really want our 4-drops to have an immediate impact on the board and not an offensive impact the turn after when we drop another creature. So I don't think we can pick the creature here, but we need one of the spells. Now, I don't know how good Peel from Reality is going to be in this kind of deck, because we don't have many cheap creatures. So I'm going with the Vanishment instead, with the idea that it's going to help us against some troublesome permanents. But that could have been a mistake. It might have been better to pick up Peel from Reality there. Now, the 5-drops continue, which is kind of sad. I would have really liked to see a Mistraven instead. But maybe our deck can find enough early game to take over with the Vanguards, which is easily possible. So the reason I took Vanishment instead of Peel from Reality is that we don't have enough early creatures to bounce with Peel from Reality. And you really need 1 and 2 drops to make Peel from Reality a tempo play also in the early game. It's still a fine card in the late game if you respond to removal, for example, but I'm really looking for early game stuff, which of course Banishment isn't either, but it's kind of the stronger card. And for that reason I'm going to pick another 5-drop, because of the overall setup of my deck just looks to be tending towards that direction. As long as I don't have any creatures to Peel from Reality, I can't really afford to pick it instead of a very reasonable card that will win us the long games. Here we have quite an empty pack, but there is Alchemist's Apprentice, and I think that once again we simply need any kind of creatures, and it is a 1/1 with a reasonable ability, so that should be better than a second Geist Snatch or any of the other cards. I do like Favorable Winds, but we don't have the deck to abuse it right now. So sadly we still don't know what our second color is going to be. We do have 3 black cards, which are all playable. We do have 2 white cards, but they aren't the greatest. And Scroll of Avacyn would make any human, any angel better. Now, I think the best card in this pack is Evernight Shade. I don't really like the Justiciar because it's very slow. So if I was white, I would probably tend towards something like Moonlight Geist. But I think our black cards are currently both stronger and they support a controlling deck better than the white cards in this set, simply because in black there is still some removal to pick up, hopefully in the 3rd pack, with Deathwind, Bone Splinters, and even Ghoul Flash. So I think now that we have the Shade, we probably just want to be a blue-black control deck, pick up some more 2-drops, and then go from there. And that's also the point where I stop picking up cards like this and have to probably settle for something like Soul Cage Fiend, despite the mana being kind of awkward. I do have 3 double blue cards and then the Shade and the Fiend, which would cost me quite a lot of black, but I think we'll figure something out. Now, once again we have the choice between Peel from Reality and another card, which would be Crypt Creeper. And if I hide the white, we see that for 1 and 2 mana I only have 3 targets for Peel from Reality, and then I have another 3 for 3 mana, but this deck just needs to have early blockers against any kind of aggressive deck, Soulbond decks or white-red aggressive decks, for example. So sadly, I have to pass on the Peel from Reality. You might think that it's important to Peel from Reality, Griff Vanguard, bounce something, cast it again, draw another card, but at some point our deck is winning if the game has gone long enough. So we really need all the cards that we can get to that point. And we get a late present here in Deathwind, which is exactly the card that we wanted to see for this kind of deck. Now, in our colors there's only Second Guess, which is not really playable in my opinion. I think the best cards are the Vigilante and Wandering Wolf, and Wandering Wolf is really a pain to play against, so I'm going to take it out. I think it's the best green 2-drop, the best common 2-drop, because it's just so easy, so difficult to control it, to block it. I don't like Triumph of Cruelty, I think it's too situational. And Grave Exchange could be a nice 6-drop if we don't pick up any other late game cards. It's not a great card, but it's fine. Some people are seriously undervaluing Stonewrite. This guy is crazy good. It's basically insane in any kind of aggressive deck. I think that this the Soulbond effects are generally still undervalued, and Stonewrite is a prime example for that. Let's pick up a second Guy Snatch, probably not playing it, but who knows. And then I'm hating another red 1-drop. Now, we do have 20 cards, but 2 of them are scrolled, so let's hide these. And we don't want to play 2 Guy Snatches. We don't necessarily want Grave Exchange, and if possible we would also like to upgrade some of our drops, especially the Soul Cage Fiend is not something I want to play, but we'll have to see if we can find something. It won't be a problem to have enough playables, but we certainly want some more powerful cards in our deck. For the second Mystic we see here, we could count the instants quickly. We do have 5, and we would want to play probably 4 of them. If we play the Mystic, of course, we could play another one, but then the Guy Snatch is going to be even more obvious if we pass after casting a Mystic, for example. But this pack is kind of sad in the sense that there isn't anything for us. There is a Trusted Force Mage, which is great, and white gets the Seraph of Dawn, but it's too late for that. So I think we should go with Bloodflow, Connoisseur, or the Lunar Mystic. And the Connoisseur is nice in some black decks. I don't think it's great in our deck, so I'm going with the rare here. It might be possible that we pick up so many instances that it's going to be a very good card in our deck. And if it isn't, then we haven't lost much. So I'm actually, well, I'm not happy with this first pick, but this is the card that has more potential. So next up, the rare is missing. There is a Thunderous Wrath and the Malcontents. Not cards we are interested in, but quite a lot of good red cards here. We have the decision between the Vanguard and Searchlight Geist. I don't think Searchlight Geist is that great, but it's a very solid creature for black, and it helps to control the board. In the late game, you can keep open 4 mana and trade with any attacker, most attackers, and it might even play nicely with our Geist Snatch. So I'm picking the Searchlight Geist instead of the Vanguard. I'm already fixed on playing 3 5-drops and a Vanishment, so I don't want any more 5-drops. Our hands need to do as much as possible in the early game, and the Searchlight Geist is an okay addition for that. Undead Executioner looks like a very good 4-drop for our deck. It usually generates some card advantage or trades for a large creature. There's a Lighthouse, but we aren't looking to splash anything. Our mana is bad enough already. And these commons here are no alternative. Now this is very interesting because here we have options from all over the curve, starting with Wingcrafter to Crypt Creeper, a second Ledge Seeker, and then the Harvester of Souls. And Harvester of Souls, of course, having a very strong ability once it's on the battlefield. The 6 mana 5/5 Death Touch isn't that great, but you can usually just start drawing a lot of cards once you drop in him. However, I don't think it's the card we need to pick here. I think we need to go for another cheap creature. And I like Wingcrafter in the aggressive blue decks. I don't think it's that great in the deck we are trying to draft because we aren't looking to go offensive with our flyers, and our best creatures already have flying. So I'm going for the Ledge Seeker as a great 3-drop. If we are trying to win the game, it just deals 3 unblockable damage. And if our opponent has a good start, maybe with the Soulbound creatures, for example, then we have a 3-power blocker for 3 mana. And there just isn't any much in this format which I like better. So although it hurts to pass the rare, I think that our deck isn't going to lose because we are missing late game options. So that being said, there isn't once again much in this pack for us. Thunderbolt is going to be good against us, and so is the Triumph of Ferocity. I don't know how much experience the players here have, but Triumph of Ferocity is actually very good in almost all green decks. I haven't really seen a green deck that doesn't want to play at least one of these. So the fact that I don't want to play against it means I'm going to take it out. Thankfully, we are getting some more good black cards. The second Deathwind is going to be a great addition to our deck. Otherwise, there will also be a Searchlight Geist and Marrowbats, which are also very good. But once again, I'm looking at the curve, and with 3 5-drops, I would pick Searchlight Geist instead of the bats, but of course Deathwind is much better. And here we get another gift, which is not Soul Cage Fiend. This card is not great. We don't want to play it. In fact, we would like to cut this one. But Crippling Chill. Crippling Chill helps both aggressive and controlling blue decks immensely in controlling the flow of the game. It's great against auras. It's great against any kind of fast tempo-y starts, and it draws you a card. So this card really does everything. You can play it on turn 3, but you can also draw it later, and it's usually a good effect to have. Taking out a creature for 2 turns is more than you can ask for. Now this is interesting because we have the choice between Haunted Guardian, Searchlight Geist, and another Executioner. And traditional drafting strategy would probably say that we have to pick up the Executioner. Its removal, its card advantage helps us to control the board. But we also have to see that it costs 4. And costing 4 is quite a lot in this format. We only have 3 2-drops and they aren't great, so I'm going to go with the Guardian instead, which puts a lot of decks in a lot of trouble from very early on. Guys of Fire is a card that's very good against me. I don't really want to see my opponents casting it on my 2-drops or my Ledge Seekers. And the alternative would be a Fleeting Distraction, which I don't even know if we would be playing. We do have so many 1 toughness creatures that our opponent's creatures would have to have 1 toughness as well. Also, there was another pack with a Fleeting Distraction, so I think it's very possible that we might still get one. And if we don't, it's not really a big deal. Haven Ghoul Scarp is not a card we would want to play. It's nice, it's gimmicky, but it's just not something we are interested in. We do have the creatures we want in our deck, so I'm going to take out the more troublesome card. Now, what I wasn't expecting was that next to the other Fleeting Distraction, there's also a Geist of Fire. I know that we have the Lunar Mystic, but we are probably cutting the most gimmicky cards from our deck anyway. So I think we take out another Geist of Fire here, which might have been incorrect. In the end, it's possible that we play the Mystic and that we would have liked to have one of the Fleeting Distractions, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Diagraph Escort is a card I regularly play in my green decks because it enables the Lumberknot, and it's a 1/1 for 1, which you can't really go wrong with, in my opinion. But well, I see no reason to hate draft it. It's not a great card. So here we are without any Fleeting Distractions, but it's not like Fleeting Distraction is an insane card, so not really upset. For deck building, I think it's pretty clear what our good cards are, and I think I've talked enough about the importance of Curve that it's going to be quite obvious what we want in our deck and what we don't want in our deck. Now, I believe that we're going to try out the Lunar Mystic. I haven't played with it, but all of our non-creatures are instants currently, so it should be a nice draw engine, and a 2/2 for 4 still has the potential to trade with some of our opponent's creatures. Now, Scroll of Avacyn is an option. We have a Vanguard's Shield, and then in black, Grave Exchange, Soul Cage Fiend, and Geist Snatch. These are basically the cards that we can consider. Another option would be to play 18 lands, but I think we've done a good job of keeping our curve low, and our deck looks very, very tight in that regard. So just going for a 9 island, 8 swamp mana base looks to be a good call. Now, Hunted Ghoul, one of the 1-drops I really never play, because you want them to drop early creatures, to block early creatures, and it just doesn't do so. Now, if we play the Mystic, there is some reason to play a second Geist Snatch. Also, this is a pre-release event Swiss draft, so having another Geist Snatch might be good against well, less experienced players with good creatures in their deck. So that's also something that we could consider. It's also possible that this deck wants another 6-drop, which would be Grave Exchange, so that we can get back our late game stuff and accompany our board control effects with one more sacrifice effect. But in this case, I think that Geist Snatch is probably the stronger card overall, considering how the games are going to play out. We do have these early drops to make sure that our board state is at least even to that of our opponent, which makes keeping mana open for Geist Snatch better overall. Now, I'm not going to play 18 lands. We do have the Apprentice to cantrip and the Crippling Chill, and we are going to draw into a lot of lands during the course of the game anyway. So I don't like Vanguard's Shield in this deck, it's too expensive. And Soul Cage Fiend would give us the 17th creature, but it's double black, which is the color where I only want to play 8 swamps. And well, the triggered ability is really a disadvantage to what this deck is trying to accomplish. So I usually like to play 17 creatures, but Soul Cage Fiend is, well, just bad enough that we don't really want to include it. So that being said, I think we should decide between Geist Snatch and Grave Exchange, and given that I'm playing the Mystic as well as 9 islands, I'm going to go with a Geist Snatch in the main deck, and depending on the matchup, we can see if Grave Exchange is going to be a good card to add. Now, this also maximizes the amount of instants we are playing, so I think this should be a good setup, and let's see how it goes.